There was a seat for everyone, except me. My name is Madeline Carter. I stood in the doorway of my mother's dining room, holding a small gift wrapped in brown paper and twine. The scent of cinnamon ham and baked yams filled the air. The table gleamed under the glow of white candles, crystal glasses, name cards written in elegant cursive, and napkins folded into quiet triangles. Someone had spent time. Someone had made it beautiful. But not for me. At the head of the table sat my older brother, Tyler, still broad-shouldered, still carrying that smirk he wore like a badge of birthright. He was carving the ham like it belonged to him, like the whole room did. And beside him, Brooke, my cousin. She wore one of my mother's old scarves, pale green silk, the one Mom used to save for Christmas Eve. Brooke laughed at something Tyler said, then sipped her wine like she'd always lived there, like she'd earned her place. I scanned the table again, looking for a missing chair, a folded napkin out of place, but the setting was perfect, full, complete, without me. Mom, Deborah, stood near the kitchen pass-through, adding toasted marshmallows to the sweet potatoes. She didn't look at me. I swallowed. "I think you forgot my seat," I said, voice steady but low. Tyler didn't miss a beat. He didn't even glance up. "It's outside," he said. "With the dogs." For a second, I thought I'd misheard. But then Brooke let out a soft breath of laughter. One of the cousins shifted awkwardly in his seat. A fork scraped porcelain. That was it. No gasps. No objections. Not even discomfort. Just silence. The kind that tells you everything. I stood there, still holding the gift. My face burned. But not from shame. From clarity. No one had forgotten me. They had chosen not to include me. And no one at that table thought that was wrong. I could have dropped the box, could have shouted or made a scene, but I didn't. I didn't need to, because the message was clear, and so was my answer. I turned, walked out. The cold met me at the porch, sharp and biting. I didn't rush, didn't cry. I just walked to my car, placed the gift gently in the passenger seat, and sat in silence. My breath fogged the window. Behind me, the house stayed lit, warm, full of voices that didn't include mine. And for the first time, I stopped pretending that maybe next year would be different. That night didn't break me. It confirmed what I hadn't wanted to believe. They hadn't forgotten me. They'd erased me. Quietly. Completely. And they'd done it so well. No one even noticed the empty chair. The night air clung to my coat as I sat in the driver's seat, the gift still resting untouched beside me. Behind the fogged windows of the house, laughter rose and fell like a language I used to understand. But not anymore. It wasn't always like this. There was a time when home meant belonging. When I was 7, Christmas was everything. Our tree wasn't elegant or symmetrical. It leaned slightly to the left and smelled like wet pine needles and old carpet. The lights blinked unevenly, half warm yellow, half a strange shade of green that never quite matched. But I loved it. Tyler and I would fight over who got to hang the wooden reindeer ornament, the one Dad made when we were kids. The antler was chipped, one leg was too short, but to us, it was magic. The reindeer always went front and center. Dad, Henry, used to hang the outside lights every year, but not without help. I remember holding the tangled strands like they were precious, running ahead while he secured them to the roofline with clothespins and grit. He'd joke, "You've got more energy than a snowstorm, Mads." And when I shivered, he'd toss me his flannel jacket, 3 sizes too big, and say, "This one's earned her marshmallows tonight." Later, we'd drink cocoa out of chipped mugs, mine with the faded holly leaves, and Tyler's with the snowman that had lost an eye in the dishwasher. We'd sit on the floor while the tree lights blinked beside us, and Dad would read from a beat-up copy of the best Christmas pageant ever. Tyler would try not to laugh, and fail. Every time Dad did the voice for Imogen Herdman, and even though I knew the story by heart, I'd lean closer each year, like the ending might change if I listened harder. Mom, Deborah, was different then, softer. She used to sing while peeling potatoes, usually off key, always quiet. Silent Night, mostly. Or Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. And when she didn't think anyone was watching, she'd twirl once or twice, apron flaring, like she remembered how it felt to be young. She kept traditions alive, not because they were perfect, but because they were ours. Every year. She'd let me unwrap one present early on Christmas Eve. It was always something small: socks, mittens, a new bookmark. But the point was, I mattered. My name was written in her handwriting, and her hands were warm when she passed it to me. Tyler and I weren't always distant. He used to let me tag along to chop firewood with Dad, even though I could barely lift the axe. He'd tell me dumb jokes and shove me playfully into snowbanks, then pull me out laughing. I remember once slipping on the porch ice, splitting my lip, and he cried harder than I did. "You're not allowed to die, ever," he'd said, wrapping me in his coat, yelling for Mom like the world had cracked open. There was a time this house knew me, a time when my chair was always there, even if it was just a wobbly stool pulled up to the corner. When the mug with the holly leaves wasn't lost in a box somewhere, but was waiting for me. When my voice didn't have to rise just to be heard. It's strange how we only notice the fading once it's too quiet to pretend anymore. Tonight, in the glow of a house that used to feel like mine, I realized something I'd been avoiding for years. I kept coming back because I believed memory could hold a place open, that if I stayed good, stayed loyal, stayed present, someone would notice the empty chair. But love, in this house, had become something earned through silence, and I wasn't willing to barter my existence for a plate at a table where no one remembered who I used to be. For a long time, I thought distance was just geography, that moving to Portland for work didn't mean I had left the family. It just meant I was building something of my own. I called home every Sunday. I visited every holiday I could. I sent money when the roof needed fixing. Paid off a medical bill once without being asked. It felt good, being dependable, useful, like I was still connected by choice, even if not by presence. But somewhere along the way, being absent became an excuse for being excluded. It started quietly. A missed call from Mom that I returned too late. Tyler answered instead, cheerful as ever. "Dad's resting now. I'll let him know you called." A few days later, I called again. Tyler again. "He's been in a fog today. Not the best time." I trusted him. Why wouldn't I? He lived close. He was helping. Then I noticed I hadn't heard Dad's voice in weeks. Just updates, filtered through Tyler, wrapped in concern, reassuring, controlled. When I asked Mom if I could speak to Dad directly, she paused. "Honey, Tyler's just better at handling these things. It's easier when it goes through him." That word again. Easier. Easier than what I didn't fight it. Not then. I didn't want to seem difficult. I told myself it was just logistics, that they were tired, that I was reading too much into things. But each visit home chipped away at that belief. The first time I noticed the photo missing, it was winter. The framed picture of Dad and me standing beside the fence we rebuilt together, it used to hang near the front hallway, just before the stairs. Now it was gone, replaced by a new photo Tyler and Brooke at the garden center, holding a flat of mums like they'd just saved the family homestead. I told myself it was just rearranging. Then, during Thanksgiving, my stocking wasn't hung above the fireplace. Tyler's was. Brooke's was. Mine was nowhere. Later, I found it stuffed in a box in the back of the hall closet, alongside a stack of old cards I'd sent over the years, still unopened. And yet, no one had ever said anything directly. No fight, no accusation, no declaration that I didn't belong. They didn't push me out. They just stopped pulling me in. Every time I came home, the furniture was rearranged slightly. The coffee mugs I remembered were replaced with a new matching set. The dish towel drawer had moved. Dad's toolbox was no longer under the sink. It was in the garage, behind boxes I didn't recognize. Brooke's handwriting appeared on post-it notes stuck to the fridge. Chicken in the oven. PT at 2:00. Don't forget to water the ferns. I still had my key. I still let myself in. But each time, I paused longer at the threshold, listening, wondering, trying to measure how much space I still occupied. Mom didn't mean to be cold. She still smiled when I arrived, still offered tea, but her smile had edges now. Not sharp, just tired, like she was trying to avoid adding weight to something already fragile. And I, too polite, too hopeful, kept pretending I didn't notice. I told myself families went through seasons. Maybe this was just a transition, that my seat at the table was still there, just temporarily moved. But even I knew, things don't slip away all at once. They fade, they shift, they replace. And one day, you realize you've become a guest in the house that raised you. At first, Brooke was just visiting. That's what Mom said. She's been stopping by to help out while your dad's been unwell. And I believed it. I wanted to believe it. I told myself family stepped in when things got hard, that Brooke showing up more often was just one of those things. Then she started staying over. I noticed the signs during a fall visit. Her shoes, neatly lined up beside the bench, her coat, hanging next to Dad's old one, a travel mug on the counter with her initials. None of it is dramatic, just quiet facts. She wasn't visiting anymore. She was there. I never got a call. No one asked if it was okay. No one said, "Hey, we know this might be weird, but Brooks moved in." It was just understood, accepted. Brooke had always been charming in a slippery kind of way. The kind of person who could borrow your earrings and swear she thought they were hers. Who once left a family dinner in tears because everyone thinks I'm the bad one. She cried easily. She apologized quickly, and somehow, she always ended up exactly where she wanted to be. She'd been out of touch with the family for years, until Dad got sick. Then, suddenly, she was everywhere. I started seeing her in photos Mom posted online, smiling beside Tyler in front of the Christmas tree, carrying a tray of rolls at Thanksgiving, laughing next to my mother, wearing the same pale green scarf Mom used to let me borrow every Christmas Eve. In one photo, she had her arm around Mom. The caption read, "My girls." My name wasn't mentioned. I tried not to overreact. I told myself I was being petty, jealous, maybe. But then came the moment I couldn't explain away. It was a Tuesday. I'd just finished a meeting and saw a missed call from the house. I called back immediately. Brooke picked up. Her voice was relaxed, casual, like she belonged there. "Hey, it's Brooke. Your mom's elbow deep in pie dough. Want me to have her call you back, your mom, not Aunt Deborah." Not Deborah. Your mom. The words hit harder than they should have, not because of what she said, but because of how naturally she said it. She didn't stumble, didn't correct herself. She said it like she meant it. And the part that hollowed me out, no one corrected her. Not Mom, not Tyler, not anyone. I asked Mom about it a week later, cautiously, carefully. "Is Brooke staying with you now? Just helping out?" Mom smiled faintly, as if the question had worn out its welcome before I finished asking it. "She's been a godsend," she said. "You know how things have been. A godsend." That was all I got. No reassurance. No acknowledgement that maybe it felt strange to be replaced, not in words, but in dishes, scarves, and photo frames. And slowly, things once mine were hers. My place at the counter, my chipped holly mug, the blanket I kept in the den, folded neatly at the foot of the guest bed. Brooke answered the phone. She texted me birthday updates. She handled the grocery list, left notes on the fridge. She became the person who knew where everything was. And I became the one who had to ask. The morning of my father's memorial. I stood in front of my closet for longer than I'd care to admit, staring at rows of black dresses, trying to decide which version of grief I was allowed to wear. I chose a simple one, knee-length, fitted at the waist, nothing flashy, the same one I'd worn to Uncle Mitch's funeral years ago. I remember leaving it in the upstairs closet during a rushed holiday visit, meaning to bring it back. I hadn't seen it since. When I arrived at the house, people were already parking along the street. The porch was lined with glass lanterns, the wreath on the door trimmed in navy ribbon. Quiet, respectful, proper, just like my father would have wanted. I stepped inside, still holding my coat, and that's when I saw her. Brooke. Wearing my dress. I recognized the slight curve in the stitching near the hem. The way it dipped just enough at the collarbone. She'd added a pin, Mom's old silver leaf brooch, but it didn't change the fact that it was mine. She stood near the entryway, greeting guests like a hostess, calm, comfortable, composed. She was telling a story. Something about Dad teaching her how to sand a cabinet door when she was a teenager. The guests nodded along, warm smiles on their faces, as if they were hearing a cherished memory. I listened, and something inside me tightened. That story wasn't hers. It was mine. I remembered that day. I'd come home from soccer practice, covered in sweat and sawdust from the shed. Dad had made me redo the angle 3 times until I got it right. I was 12. Brooke wasn't even there. I looked around the room. No one questioned it. No one paused. Tyler laughed like he'd heard the story before. Mom stood nearby, a gentle smile on her face. Not once did she correct it. Not once did she say, "That was Madeline, not Brooke." I didn't interrupt. I couldn't. I felt rooted to the floor, still holding my coat, my fingers clenched around the buttons. People moved past me like I was part of the wallpaper. No one stopped to ask how I was doing. No one said, "He'd be proud of you." No one even noticed I hadn't spoken. In the living room, framed photos lined the mantel. Dad as a boy, Dad and Mom on their wedding day, Tyler holding a trout the size of his arm, Brooke and Dad, smiling beside the garden shed. But the photo of me and him, shoulder to shoulder, the day we rebuilt the fence, it was gone. Just like the stocking, just like the mug, just like me. When the service ended, I stood outside for a long time. It was colder than I expected, the wind sharp against my dress. My dress. I watched the windows glow from within, heard the faint clink of glasses, the low hum of remembered stories. And I realized something no one had said out loud. They had rewritten the story. And this time, I wasn't in it. I wasn't the daughter in the photograph. I wasn't the voice in the memory. I was a name they used less and less until it faded completely. That night, for the first time, I understood that erasure doesn't always come with anger or noise. Sometimes, it arrives in borrowed fabric, misplaced memories, and a room full of people nodding at the wrong narrator. And all I could do was stand there, quiet, still, unseen, watching someone else live my role like she'd been born into it. A few weeks after the memorial, I drove back to the house without calling ahead. I told myself I wasn't going to stay long, just a drive-by. Just enough time to remind myself the walls were still there. The porch swing still creaked. That maybe. Even if I no longer belonged inside, the house would still remember me. There were no cars in the driveway. No. Tyler's truck. No. Brooke is in the kitchen window. No noise from the living room, no piano music, no scent of bread rising, just stillness. I stepped inside with the key I never gave back. The floors creaked under my boots, familiar and unchanged. A few paintings had moved. Some furniture had been swapped. But mostly, it was the same, except I wasn't. I moved through the house like a visitor, past the hallway where my photo once hung, past the linen closet where Mom used to store peppermint candles, and finally, to the study, Dad's study. It was the only room that felt untouched. The air inside was colder, sharper. His recliner sagged just the way I remembered, threadbare along one arm. His bookshelf stood tall, lined with yellowed paperbacks, each worn at the edges. The toolbox still rested beneath the bottom shelf, paint chipped, rust gathering at the corners. And in the far corner, the cabinet, dark wood, brass handle. I'd seen him open it a dozen times as a kid, but I'd never paid attention to what went inside. My fingers wrapped around the handle. It stuck at first, then gave way. Inside, metal, a small safe. My breath caught. I didn't know what I was hoping for. Maybe nothing. Maybe something. I remembered suddenly how he once tucked a tiny key inside his favorite book, said it was just in case. I scanned the shelf. Travels with Charlie, by John Steinbeck. Same cracked leather spine. The key was still there. I knelt down, heart pounding louder than it should have. Slid the key into the lock. Turned. The click echoed. Inside, there wasn't much. An envelope. Thick, cream-colored. My name is on the front, written in his unmistakable hand. Madeline. I sat on the floor, back against the wall, knees pulled to my chest, opened it slowly. First, the will, notarized, dated 2 weeks before he died. Everything, the house, the savings, the land in Jackson Hole, all left to me. No mention of Tyler, no mention of Brooke, just me. Behind the will, a single folded page, his handwriting, slanted and steady. Madeline, I see it now. I didn't before, and I'm sorry. You never asked for anything. You just stayed. You protected me when no one else did. This house is yours. You've earned it. Love, Dad. I didn't cry at the memorial. Not when Brooke told my stories like they were hers. Not when no one looked for me. Not when the photo disappeared. But I cried then, on the floor of his study. Not for the money, not for the house, but because, finally, someone had seen me and said it out loud. 3 days later, I returned. Not because I was invited, not because I hoped anything had changed. I came back because I had something to leave behind. And this time, it wasn't a question. It was early evening, just as the December sky was giving up its last light. I parked across the street and sat for a moment, watching the house through the windshield. The same colored lights blinked unevenly along the porch railing. The same wreath, slightly crooked, hung on the door. From where I sat, it looked warm inside, familiar, but I didn't flinch. I'd chosen a plain brown box, tied it with twine, inside a printed copy of Dad's will, the original letter, and the photo, me and him, shoulder to shoulder, grinning with wood dust on our sleeves. The day we rebuilt the fence, the day that was mine. I wore a navy coat. No drama, no red lips, no statement earrings, just me. Quiet, certain. I stepped onto the porch and let myself in. No one noticed at first. The dining room was full again. The table was dressed just as before, with name cards, wine glasses, and polished silverware. Tyler is at the head, Brooke to his right. Mom was across from them, smiling that soft, practiced smile she used to reserve for guests. And again, no seat for me, no plate, no napkin, not even a glance of surprise when I entered. Tyler looked up mid-sentence, fork in hand. He blinked, expression unreadable. I didn't wait for permission. I walked to the center of the table and placed the box down gently, letting it rest between the candles. The twine caught the flame for a moment, casting a small shadow across the lid. Then I looked straight at him. "Check under your plate." The room went still. He hesitated, then slid the porcelain charger aside. Beneath it, the key, small, brass, worn smooth with time. The same key I'd pulled from Steinbeck's book, the one that opened Dad's safe. His fingers hovered above it, not yet touching. His face didn't change, but his silence did. He wasn't confused. He was calculating. Brooke leaned forward slightly. "What is this?" she asked, reaching for the box. I didn't answer her. I didn't even look her way. I met Mom's eyes instead. For the first time in months, I looked directly at her. She stood slowly, lips parted. "Madeline, this isn't..." But I didn't let her finish. "I'm not staying," I said, my voice calm. "Just wanted to drop something off." And with that, I turned. No one followed. No one told me to wait. No one said they were sorry. I stepped outside into the cold, the wind biting at my collar. As I reached my car, I heard the sound of chairs scraping against the floor. A voice. Brooke's. Maybe. Rising in sharp confusion. The flap of the box being opened. The rustle of paper. My mother gasping. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. Because the truth, once unwrapped, doesn't need an audience. It just needs to be left on the table. I closed the car door gently. The kind of quiet that doesn't need a slam. The kind that knows its own weight. Inside. The heater ticked softly as it warmed the cabin. My hands rested on the steering wheel. Not clenched. Not shaking. Just still. I didn't start the engine right away. I didn't need to go anywhere yet. I just wanted to sit with what I'd done. And more importantly, with what I didn't do. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse anyone. I didn't beg to be seen. All I did was leave the truth where it belonged, at the center of their perfect table, beneath their crystal glasses and curated smiles. In that plain box were three things: a notarized copy of Dad's will, dated, signed, and indisputable. A photograph. Me and him in matching flannel shirts, standing in front of the fence we rebuilt one summer when I was 16. Sun in our eyes, dirt under our nails. His arm slung over my shoulder like I belonged exactly where I stood. And the letter. Madeline. I see it now. You never asked for anything. You just stayed. This house is yours. You've earned it. Love. Dad. Nothing more. No threats. No explanations. No defense. Because the truth doesn't argue. It doesn't negotiate. It just waits. Quiet and patient. Until the silence around it grows too heavy to ignore. Behind me, inside that house, they were likely reading now. Tyler would have picked up the will first, checked the dates, the signatures, calculated the implications. Brooke might be standing beside him, scanning the letter, face tight, jaw clenched in that subtle way she gets when something doesn't go her way. Mom, I don't know. Maybe she'd be holding the photo. Maybe she'd be seeing it for the first time as it truly was. Not just a memory, but a moment she hadn't bothered to remember. A moment that proved I had always been there, even when she chose to look past me. I didn't need to watch their reactions. Didn't need to see the way Tyler's expression would shift from smug certainty to something smaller. Didn't need to hear Brooke's excuses or Mom's attempts to smooth it over with phrases like, "We didn't realize," or, "It was never our intention." Because they had made their intentions clear, not in what they said, but in what they erased. And now, the truth sat in front of them. Not as a weapon, but as a mirror. They would have to read those words, see that photo, hold that key, and speak the truth aloud, not for me, but to each other, in their own voices, in their own shame. I started the engine. The windshield slowly cleared, revealing my reflection in the glass, faint, but steady. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to defend my place, because the silence I left behind would do it for me. The first message came the next morning. I saw it before my alarm even went off. Just a missed call and a voicemail from Mom. Her contact photo still showed a picture of us from 5 Christmases ago. We were both wearing matching reindeer sweaters, hers slightly oversized, mine with a marshmallow stain on the sleeve. That was before things started disappearing. Before I did, I let the message play, the phone speaker tinny in the quiet of my apartment. "Hi, sweetie. We read what you left. It caught us off guard. That's all. I think we should talk. Just come by sometime, and we'll sit down like a family. Okay, I love you." I replayed it once, just to be sure I'd heard it right. Caught us off guard. Not, "We didn't know." Not, "I'm sorry." Just surprise, as if the truth had knocked on their door without permission. Later that afternoon, Tyler texted, "Can we meet? There's a lot to discuss. I think we all misunderstood each other." Not, "You were right." Not, "I shouldn't have said that." Just misunderstanding. Like I'd misread a decade of silence. Like I'd overreacted to being erased. I didn't reply. Then Brooke sent a message. No words. Just a single emoji. A sad face. I stared at it longer than I should have. No explanation. No acknowledgement. Not even an attempt. Just the digital equivalent of a sigh. As if I should know how she felt. As if I should care. I didn't. What struck me most wasn't the sudden flood of contact. It was what none of them said. No one asked about the will. No one brought up the letter. No one mentioned the photo of Dad and me, the one they'd quietly replaced years ago. They danced around the truth like it was something fragile, like if they didn't name it, it wouldn't shatter. But that's the thing about silence. It protects the person who caused the harm, not the one who carries it. So I didn't answer. Not out of bitterness, not out of pride, but because some messages don't deserve a reply. They don't say, "We were wrong." They say, "We're uncomfortable now that you made it impossible to pretend." I watched as the unread messages stacked up. More voicemails, a few photos from Tyler, an old Christmas ornament, the family dog, a text from Mom that said, "Your father wouldn't want this distance between us." But he hadn't created the distance. They had. He'd seen it in the end. And he'd left me the one thing they never gave. A voice. And that voice didn't need to scream. It just needed space. Space I wasn't going to surrender again. Not for guilt. Not for nostalgia. And certainly not for an emoji. By the end of the week, the messages slowed. Maybe they ran out of ways to say nothing. Or maybe they were waiting, hoping time would do what they couldn't. Soften me. Make me question myself. Pull me back into the role they were more comfortable with, silent, forgiving, grateful, just to be acknowledged. But I wasn't that version anymore. And then, Tyler showed up. He came to my office without warning, dressed in a charcoal blazer like he wanted to look serious, respectable. My assistant didn't recognize him. Just saw a man with too much confidence and too little invitation. She stepped into my office, closed the door behind her, and simply said, "There's someone in reception. He says he's your brother. Do you want me to let him in?" I looked up from my desk, met her eyes, and shook my head. "No. Tell him I'm in a meeting." She hesitated, then nodded. I figured. She never asked for details. She didn't need to. Tyler waited in the lobby for 10 minutes, maybe less. Then he left. No scene, no second attempt. Later that night, my phone rang. It was Mom. I stared at the screen for a few rings, then answered. Her voice was softer than I remembered, not quiet from politeness, but from effort. Like every word carried weight. She wasn't used to holding. Madeline, she said. And for a moment, I thought she might finally say it. This family, she began, then paused. It's still yours. I closed my eyes, because I'd once waited years to hear those words, clung to the fantasy that they'd reach for me, call me home, tell me I was wanted, that the door hadn't just shut quietly behind me. But now I didn't need them to open a door I had already walked away from. I let the silence settle between us before I spoke. I was always there. Mom. Another pause. You just lived easier when I wasn't. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She just breathed, like someone who'd finally realized the words she offered couldn't undo the ones she never said. I didn't hang up, but I didn't fill the space either, because I'd learned something in the silence they once used against me. I didn't need to be asked back. I didn't need a seat. I had to earn. What I needed, what I had finally given myself, was permission to leave without guilt. Not because I stopped loving them, but because I started choosing myself. A few days after that final call, I pulled out a small padded envelope from the drawer beside my bed. I'd already written the address on the front. No return label, no signature, just clean block letters and a single stamp pressed into the corner. Inside was the photo, the original, of me and Dad standing side by side after rebuilding the backyard fence. Sunburned, dusty, smiling like the world made sense, even if only for an afternoon. His arm was draped around my shoulders like it belonged there. Like I belonged there. For years, that photo had hung in the front hallway, right near the light switch. It used to greet me every time I came home. But somewhere along the way, they'd replaced it. With what? I don't remember. Probably something neutral. Something easier to look at. I didn't include a note. I didn't need to. There were no accusations left to make. No names to call. No explanations to offer. Just a picture. Of a truth that never asked for permission to exist. I dropped it off at the post office the next morning and didn't think about it again. Not actively. Not out loud. But part of me still wondered what they'd do with it. If it would go straight into a drawer, a shredder, the trash. A week later, I got a text. Not from Tyler. Not from Mom. From Mrs. Alvarez, our neighbor 2 doors down. She and Dad used to share tomatoes over the fence in late July. We hadn't spoken much in recent years, but she still had my number from some long-forgotten emergency contact form. The message was short. Thought you'd want to know. This just went up. Attached was a photo, blurry, taken from her phone, but unmistakable. The inside of Dad's old woodworking shed. Dusty, dim, unused since he passed. And on the back wall, above the workbench, tacked between a coil of rope and a rusted level, was the photo. One of us and him. Crooked, unframed, unexplained. But there. She hadn't written anything else. Didn't ask questions. Didn't offer commentary. She didn't have to. Because that little wooden shed had always been ours. Not Mom's. Not Tyler's. Not Brooke's. No one else had reason to go in there. No one else ever cared to. It was where Dad taught me how to measure twice. Cut once. I held nails steady while he hammered. Where he told me, on a rainy afternoon, this world gets loud. You just stay steady, kid. And now, our photo was back on its wall. Not in the living room where people performed family, not in the hallway where guests could see, but in the one place that had never tried to forget me. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. But it was something stronger. It was proof. That was what was real. Still was. Even if they couldn't face it. Even if they'd tried to erase it. Some truths hang on quietly. even if no one sees them but you. Life moved on, not with a bang, not with some sweeping transformation, just with the quiet, steady rhythm of ordinary days. I stayed in Portland. Same apartment, same corner coffee shop, same creaky radiator that groans every time the temperature dips below 35. I still work too late, still forgot to water my plants, still take long walks when I can't sleep. Some things never really change, but inside, something has. Not louder, not sharper, just clearer. There's peace in no longer needing to explain yourself, in knowing that you didn't have to win the argument to keep your place in the story, that sometimes, choosing not to fight is how you finally reclaim your voice. Most mornings, I still drink from the old holly mug, the one with the faded leaves and the small chip near the handle. I took it back after Dad's memorial, quietly, tucked it into my bag like a keepsake, like a piece of proof. Some winters, the chip deepens a little more. I let it. It's part of it now. People ask sometimes, usually friends who know parts of the story, did you ever get closure? I smile. Because closure isn't a door someone else can shut for you. It isn't an apology. It isn't a seat offered too late at a table too small. It's the quiet knowing that you were always telling the truth, even when no one was listening. So when they ask, I just say this: I didn't need closure. I just needed the truth to stand. And now it does. And I raise my chipped mug, not in bitterness, but in honor of everything they couldn't erase.